welcome to week 3 of Chaostober. I'm going to let you know what I'm reading, and I'm going to let you know how we're going to be choosing books for this week. If you haven't seen any of my Chaostober videos, I would recommend you start with the TBR and then watch the weeks 1 and 2 vlog to kind of see what I'm doing. But the TLDR version is that I am trying to read as many books as I can to try to finish off my reading goals for the year. I have this big reading goals game I've been playing with myself all year to earn some prizes, and I am nearing the end of it, and I want to be really reading, see if I can finish them early and have some free reading time at the end of the year. So the way we're going to be doing week 3 is that we're going to be doing a little mini version of a fun challenge that I did back in May, and that is to start a book every day during this week. So it is Tuesday night right now, so I'm not starting a new book today, but I will be starting one from Wednesday through Tuesday of next week. So we're going to have 7 books that we're going to be starting within the 7 days. I don't have to finish them, but if I did finish them on the day that I started them, that would be great. So this is a mini version of a larger challenge that I've done inspired by my friend Martine. Martine has done this challenge 3 times now on their channel and is always one of my favorite videos to watch. And when I was kind of brainstorming what kind of ideas would work for Chaostober, this is one that came to my mind. I have about 20 books or so that I need to be reading to meet all of my reading goals for the year, and so I definitely want to be starting them. One of the ideas for why I want to start so many books all at once is some books can be a very easy DNF for me. I read 30 pages and I think this is not the book for me, and I can just kind of move on pretty quickly. So the goal is to start books and weed out the ones I don't think I like. If I like them all, great. I'll just be in the middle of a lot of books and we'll move on from there. But if I don't like them, I can kind of take them off the TBR because I count DNFs towards my reading goals. If I tried it and I didn't like it, it still counts. So I'm currently in the middle of Perdido Street Station by China Mieville. I'm 220 pages through this and I absolutely love it. So I'm definitely going to be reading this throughout the week. And the first book that I'm going to start is Bitter Greens by Kate Forsyth. I want to start a book that I think I'll read on audiobook a little bit. This is a historical fiction with maybe some fantastical elements. I've heard that it's the story of the author of Rapunzel mixed in with the story of Rapunzel, maybe how the story of Rapunzel was inspired by her life. So I'm definitely thinking that historical fiction is going to be easier to listen to than some of the epic fantasy that's still on my TBR. So this one is going to be the one I start on audiobook. I have a crochet project that I want to finish before the end of October. On Halloween, I'm going to California for my brother's wedding over that weekend, and I thought it'd be nice to take along some crocheting to have when I'm just out and about, maybe hanging out, doing wedding stuff, helping out, maybe doing different things. I might just have some free time to do some crocheting. So I thought it would be really fun to have a project that's smaller. I will show you when I sit down to work on it, but I'm working on a shawl and it has 8 rows that need to be done. So it's really big. I wanted to make a nice big cozy shawl, and it's very big. It's very cozy too, but it's very big. So I need to research a sweater project, either a cardigan or a pullover sweater, and finish this project. That way I can finish this one and then have a new project ready to go before I leave, and hopefully start it a little, get the groove going on that project before I'm taking it on the go. So I definitely think I might listen to the audiobook to help me finish out that project. It probably only has 3 or 4 hours of crocheting left, depending on how fast I am during it. So I definitely think that like this on audiobook, if I'm crocheting, I can focus really well and understand this while I'm working, so the story isn't like going over my head. So I can finish up that old project. I probably won't start a new one while I'm listening to audio because that's a lot to start a new project, but I want to listen to this one while doing some crocheting. That sounds lovely and cozy. So these are going to be my first ones for the first day, and then I have no idea what I'm going to pick on Thursday. You'll just have to tune back in to find out. Hello, I'm here with an update on how day 1 of week 3 is going. So I have been working away on Perdido Street Station. If you saw my last vlog, you'll know I'm absolutely loving this. I am very close to the halfway mark. I have like 50 pages or so until halfway. So I've read like 100 pages this morning and this afternoon so far. So we're making good progress with that. It does read a little slower because it is quite dense. It's a very weird fantasy, crazy story. And so it does, like, I can't read a page a minute like I do with some other books. So it's slow going, but I'm really enjoying it. And then because we're starting a book every day, I have listened to about 30 minutes of Bitter Greens by Kate Forsyth. And I'm about to sit and crochet and listen to that a little bit. I'm not super inspired by the first 30 minutes of it, but I'm not hating it. So I am going to give it longer before I make any like crazy decisions to DNF. We're following the story of Charlotte, who will be the author of Rapunzel, and she is in the Sun King's court, and because of things that are happening, the king has like a bunch of love affairs. This is Louis the 14th. So Charlotte, our main character, was in the court of the Sun King, and for reasons I don't think we know yet, she is basically told by Louis, you need to leave, and I'm going to send you to a convent, and I will still pay, like, your allowance so you can, like, have money to live off of, but you need to go live in this convent. And the story kind of goes from there. I've heard that it's gonna bring in the Rapunzel story a bit because she eventually wrote Rapunzel. So I'm definitely, like, finding it a little interesting, like having someone who's used to court life going to live in a monastery forcibly is very interesting. It's just a totally different lifestyle, and becoming a nun by force is a very weird thing. Like, people don't do that. Like, you take your vows seriously usually if you're a nun, and so like someone who's doing it just to live, basically, is very interesting. And we're kind of just seeing as she's getting to the monastery and learning what it's going to be like, and she's trying to think, like, how can I go back to court? I don't want to be here. So I am going to be listening to this while I'm crocheting, and I'll show you my crochet project that I'm working on and trying to finish. This is my shawl. It's very big. It's going to be hard to, like, show you the whole thing, but it's this really pretty, like, sagey green color, and it's pretty soft. I forget. I think this is Big Twist brand yarn, and this is the second project I've worked with it for, and I find it very nice. It looks nice. I like the colors. And it feels nice even though it's just like normal acrylic yarn. So all I need to do is basically one more repetition of the pattern. It like repeats 5 rows, like has been repeating for quite a while. So I have to do like one more repetition of the 5 rows. I've started on the first one here. And then I need to do like a border row to kind of finish it off. So I'm going to sit, maybe try to do like a row and a half. That'll probably take me 45 minutes to an hour. And then I'll need to give my wrists a break. But then I'll probably go back to reading physically. And hopefully that hour will give me some insight into bitter greens and whether or not I want to keep going on it. Like, I kind of need to get some intrigue going here because I'm not finding it very inspiring or interesting at the moment. So we gotta get going on that, and having some crocheting to kind of keep me busy while I'm listening will be perfect. So I read yesterday a solid 50 pages into Tara Road. I am very 50-50 on whether or not I want to continue in this. It's hard to explain what I feel when reading this. I feel interested in some moments and then very uninterested in others. This is moving very quick. So Maeve Binchy's writing style in this book, I don't know if this is her writing style because I've never read from her before. It's like these little vignettes, and she kind of jumps from scene to scene to scene with these little line breaks. She'll kind of jump. There's lots of dialogue, which means it flows very easily when I'm reading it. It's a very easy breezy read. I was finding myself pausing Perdido Street Station and going for this one because it's such an easy read, and this is a more heavy brain read. So that definitely has its benefit. But what I'm not sure about is I'm just not sure if this is going to be too much of a heartwarming, feel good, happy read. It's definitely going to deal with some tough topics. And this was written in 98, I believe, and it does feel a little dated, but what is interesting is the main character is entering into this relationship very early on in the story. She's getting engaged, getting married to this man who she falls in love with very quickly. She seems very naive, and he's not treating her the best. They don't seem to have a very communicative relationship. She gets pregnant before they're engaged, and so that kind of pushes things forward. And there's a lot of things where it's he's putting himself first and not her. And I think the story is going to be about her hopefully learning to not let people walk all over her, learning to be a little bit less naive in her life and to be more of her own person rather than sacrificing everything for a relationship. So I would hope that's what it's about. But the way it's reading right now, I can't tell if that's what we're supposed to be getting from it, or if some of it is well, she's a woman, so she should be letting the man make decisions about the career, even though it affects her in a negative way. She should be giving up things for him, things like that. So I don't know. And I read reviews, and I don't know. The reviews didn't necessarily help me. I know a lot of people said her books are kind of long and not a lot happen in them. A lot of people spoke about frustration with the characters as well. So it's all those things that are kind of these negatives that are kind of holding me back from really enjoying it, or also things that other people didn't enjoy. I'm not sure. There's a couple ways I could go about this. One is I could unhaul it, and probably I wouldn't care that much if I unhaul this and the other few books of hers and just say, like, she's probably not an author for me. I'm not driving with the writing style, because that's the other thing. I feel like this writing style is really putting me at a distance from the characters. It's like I'm watching a montage on a movie rather than like reading a book where I'm really delving into them. Like, I care for Rhea, but I don't feel like I'm in her life, in her thoughts, in her brain. So I could just put this down, see how often I'm reaching for it, and see if things kind of pick up. The part of it where two women like swap lives, I've heard doesn't happen until like the halfway point, which is what really concerns me, because like that plot was the reason I picked up this book. I want that plot of like the women switching lives and going to live in each other's houses, but like I'm not sure if I want to read through like that much to get there. I could just like put it to the side and see if I want to get back to it after like reading some other things. I could put it down now, or I could try to like push through a little bit. I'm gonna think about what I want to do for the next few minutes while I update you on other things. Bitter Greens. I'm enjoying this. We are still delving into the story of Margarita, who's the girl, like the real life Rapunzel. In this story, the story from the nun who's telling it to Charlotte, who will, I think, eventually turn it into the story of Rapunzel. And it's a good audiobook. I'm enjoying it. I think there may come a point where I kind of tire of listening to it on audiobook and I want to kind of like speed up and read it and finish it. But I'm about 35% of the way through it on audio and I'm really enjoying it. I'm going to keep listening to it for now, probably do some more crocheting and listening to it. And then I made huge progress in Perdido Street Station. Over my 48 hours of reading, I read almost 300 pages in it. I think I'm a little further in this because I was reading it on ebook this morning, but I'm roughly on page 500. I'm like maybe 490 or something like that. I'll have to update and find my page, but I'm still enjoying this. I will say it's taken a turn for the like militaristic action plot that I'm not loving. It's really changed from the beginning of the story, and I understand why the plot has changed. Because of things that are happening in the story, there is like a big threat to the city, and our characters kind of get wrapped up, for reasons I don't want to say, into the plot to try to fix what's wrong. So I get why we're having to do this, like lots of military action, but it's not my fave. I find it hard to care during these action scenes, and I think it's because I liked the little weird scenes we were getting at the beginning more than I like the actiony military plot and scenes that we're getting now. So I'm still pushing through. I have about 200 pages left. We still have, a decent third of the book left. So I'm going to keep reading. I do plan to finish this because I am still, I would say if my enjoyment was like a 5 at the beginning, it's like a 3 right now for this section I've been reading. I don't know, the last few chapters have been more focused on it, but like definitely I could still see it being like a 4.5 by the end if like the ending can be really great. And we still have 200 pages. Like, that's quite a chunk of the book to go. So lots of things can happen. So I'm definitely, like, still committed to finishing that one. I just may need to, like, either read a lot in one go and kind of get through that portion. Or if it just seems like that's going to continue, slow it down then and read a bunch of other things. It is 3:30 p.m. and I have not started a book for today, but I do have one picked out that I would like to start. So I'm going to take you over to the shelf. We're going to talk about all the books that we're currently in the middle of, and then I'll tell you what book I'm going to actually pick and start for today. And I will start that right after I'm done filming this. Okay, so here's our shelf. I'm in the middle of these three. These are my main reads right now. I have started this one. I've started this one, and I started this one. These are like lingering reads, these three. So we're technically in the middle of 6, and we're going to be starting more. The idea of starting a book every day is just to get my toes in a bunch of books and kind of see which ones are calling to me the most and the ones I want to spend my time on. So the one I've pulled out that I want to read for today is Magician Apprentice by Raymond E. Feist. This, like the short Sword of Shannara that I tried last week, I think it might be an easy DNF if I don't get along with the writing style. It's one of those older fantasy books that I'm learning maybe aren't my favorite, or I only like some few and far in between, especially the ones written by men, because the female characters are tragically bad in some of them. So we're going to read this one. I'm going to use a cute bookmark my sister bought me at an art market. It's like made of fabric, like painted canvas. And I love it. It's so cute and fantasy themed. As I talked through my reasons for starting a bunch of books and how I want to find out what I'm interested in, that book right there, don't think I'm that interested in it. So I might put it on the stack to give away. And then if I really feel like rescuing it before the end of Chaostober, I'll rescue it. But I think putting it on the stack might help me let go of it. So let me do that. Okay, these are the other 2 books of hers that I got in like a fill-a-bag at the library book sale for like, I don't know, $6 or something. So I threw them in there because they sounded vaguely interesting, and they've been hanging out on my shelves for a few years. So just might be time for me to say that they were a little bit of an impulse buy and that maybe it's time to let them go. Okay, we'll put it there. I was on page 50, so if I need to, we will rescue it, but the stack is growing, and sometimes just putting them on that like space where it's like you're going to be leaving me is enough for me to like let them go, because they're taken out of their space on the shelves and it's easier to let them go at that point. So 12 books, maybe getting ready to leave at the end of the month. Okay, I think I'm going to pass on this one. I read about 15 pages and there's just no intrigue. I'm not loving the writing style. It feels very typical of this era of fantasy. There's like a magician and a dragon or a fire drake. Apparently there's a difference. And yeah, there's just nothing like capturing me, and I think I'm just looking for intrigue. So I'm gonna give this one a pass, and we'll be working on my other books, Perdido Street Station and Bitter Greens, and then tomorrow we'll pick a new one to start. So I'm gonna take this over to the stack along with the other Raymond Feist books, because I think if the writing style isn't working for me here, probably not gonna work for me in the other series, which I only owned book 2 of, so that'll be fine to pass along. So Servant of the Empire is by Feist and Janny Wirtz. So if I love Janny Wirtz, I'll maybe check this out from the library, but I don't need book 2 in a series I'm not sure I want to read. And then I had 2 copies of the second one. One of them, this one is the preferred edition by the author. I read in the foreword to this one that like he rewrote it because when it was first published, they wanted him to like take out a bunch of stuff that he kind of thought was maybe better suited to be in there. So I'd had 2 versions of this that I will pass on because I wasn't sure which one was better to read. And this stack is massive. We're at 16 books, but this is what Chaostober and my reading goals have been about. Like, I wanted to kind of revolutionize my shelves, get rid of these books that have been sitting on there for ages, and that's what we're doing. Hello, we're here with an update. I did not do a lot of reading on Friday or Saturday. So yesterday before bed, I did read a little bit of this, a little bit in my secret book because that's the ebook I have going right now. This one, I'm on page 520. We have like 190 pages to go. We are getting there with Perdido Street Station. I am enjoying it still. It just got to some parts that I wasn't as interested in, and we slowed down a little bit. I haven't done any of this over the past couple days. I just haven't been listening to an audiobook. And then because we needed to start a book yesterday, I started a small one, Tortilla Flat by John Steinbeck. I am liking this one. I'm about a quarter of the way through. I've just been able to pick it up and read it in like a few quick sittings. It's very easy to read. John Steinbeck is very readable in my opinion. And this one is interesting because I was reading in the beginning, there was like a little biography kind of about his works and stuff. And this is the book that kind of put him on the map. He had written some other things before that didn't really go anywhere, and like this is the book that made him more of a popular success. So it's been really interesting to read it. I am not loving this as much as I love other ones, but I am enjoying it. And my goal is to read most of Steinbeck's stories because I do really enjoy them. Some exceptions are just the ones I'm not interested in. I think he did like a King Arthur retelling that I'm not interested in, and a couple things like that. And then his short fiction, I tried a short fiction collection that did not work for me at all. I don't think I like his short stories very much. But this one is so interesting because it's about these men that are just kind of wandering around. They were soldiers in the First World War. They're not really doing anything with their life. They're just kind of wandering around looking for a good time, drinking. And the main character, Danny, his grandpa dies and leaves him these 2 houses in Tortilla Flat. And suddenly he's like, oh, I'm very well to do. And so he is talking to his friend, Pylon? I forget which one it was, Pablo or Pylon. He talks to them and is like, hey, you need a place to stay. Why don't I rent out the second house to you? Because I don't need 2 houses. And he is renting out the place to this person. I think it's Pylon. And Pylon is like, oh yeah, I'll rent it from you. And they both kind of know that like Pylon's not going to actually pay rent because like he doesn't have a job. He just spends a lot of his money on wine and drinking and like buying gifts for women that don't want him in that way. And so you have this like kind of funny, tenuous, like Danny kind of asks for rent but doesn't really expect Pylon to pay anything. And Pylon is like, oh, I'll get you that rent. But we all know like he's not going to, and Danny knows he's not going to. And then as they're like going along, we meet someone else that Pylon knew, and Pylon's like, hey, I rent a house now from Danny. Do you need a place to stay? You could rent it from me. And it's kind of like, okay, when Pablo gives me the rent money, then I can give Danny that money, and then I don't really have to have like a job. And but as that's happening, it's like Pylon knows Pablo's not going to actually pay him any money, and so they're just like gathering people, and it's very like funny and humorous, the characters, and this like silly situation of like, you better pay rent, and they're like, oh, we will, I'll pay you rent when Pablo pays me rent, so as soon as he gets me money, I'll get you your money. And it's just a very silly situation, and I think that Steinbeck writes those kinds of things so well, where it's just like, I don't know, you feel like you very quickly get to know the people in his stories and what they're about. And he's very good at writing these fun, quirky characteristics that just make you like roll your eyes or chuckle or just, I don't know, get a feeling like you could see this happening in real life, even though it's a little ridiculous and silly. Kind of reminds me a little bit of like Charles Dickens characters, where they are these larger than life characters that are so silly and so strange, but Steinbeck, I feel like, writes in a much simplified, more approachable way than Charles Dickens. So I'm enjoying this. I'll probably just pick it up here and there and kind of work my way through it. I wanted to pick up a short one because I'm just trying to focus on this and finish it off so that I can then turn my focus to another like difficult read. I don't want to have like too many on the go, even though that's kind of what we're doing with starting a book every day during this week. We're kind of adding to the pile purposely because it's helping me really figure out which books I want to focus on and which ones I want to let go. So let's go pick out a book for today, because I haven't figured out yet what I'm thinking I'd like to start. So let's go look at the bookshelf, see what we have going on, and see what we might be interested in starting. Okay, so as we can see, the pile is slowly dwindling. As a reminder, I have started these two and this one, so we're really looking at these two, this one, and then these. Now, I don't think I'm in the mood for like a big brain book. I just really want to save my big brain energy for Perdido Street Station until I can power through that one. So I'm thinking maybe this one. I think this is just going to be like adventure fantasy, and it could be good to just like get a start for it. Rachel Neumeyer is someone who I own 5 books by. I own a trilogy by her and then 2 standalones. And I just feel like I should give her writing a chance. It's also like a rainy, stormy day, so maybe this would be nice to read like something that obviously looks very cold and wintry. So I think I might start this one. I'm also like not really wanting to start like a complicated old fantasy like these. And I kind of want to finish my Bitter Greens historical before I start another historical. So I think we're going to start with A Winter of Ice and Iron and then really try to focus on like finishing up some books today. Hello, it's Monday around 5 p.m. and I have yet to start a book because I was working today. So I was working on Perdido Street Station primarily while I was at work. And so I needed to pick out a book to read for about the next hour before my sister comes. She and I always hang out on Monday nights and watch a show together and talk and catch up and all that. So I needed to get a little bit of reading in my new book. And as I was looking at the shelves, with all of the fantasy that I have going, I was having a little bit of dread at the thought of starting another fantasy book. Not even just that I'm reading that much fantasy, but also just like starting another book with more characters. It's getting a little daunting. We got a lot on the go and a lot of things that I'm trying to wrap up. So I decided to go with what I thought would be like an easier read to add onto this stack, and that is The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. I've heard this is a very good World War II story about sisters. It's shorter and there's not like a ton of words on the page. This print is not tiny. The words are not squished in there. And it's only like 430 pages, which is quite a bit shorter than a lot of the fantasy or sci-fi I have left on there. Everything on there is like over 500. Some of them like 600, 700 pages still. So I was like, maybe I should start something that I stand a chance finishing before the end of the month. I do have some classics, but I'd like to finish up Tortilla Flat before moving on to my other short classics, because I think I could probably squeeze those in. So I'm going to read this, but I thought I would update you how The Winter of Ice and Iron went. So I started this yesterday and I read the prologue and the first chapter, and the prologue was a little rough. I did not like the writing at all, but as we kind of got going in the first chapter, things got a little better. I will say this print is very small for what I was expecting. And this is a 560 page book. So I was like, oh, this is like, I knew it was a chunky book, but I didn't realize like how chunky, how small these words were. But I will say this, once we got going, it kind of read almost like a Sanderson novel where the writing is not doing anything for me, but it's not hindering me at all. The only thing that I will say is it's doing that thing in fantasy that I struggle with sometimes, which is just throwing you into the world and just going, pick it up as you can. So like it was talking about imminent power, and that I think is the magic system of this book, but they do not explain at all what it is, how it works. She gives you like these little tidbits as it goes, but I'm very confused as to what it is and how it all works. So that was a little frustrating. So I think the writing is just going to be smooth and not kind of trip me up in any way, which I am looking forward to. I think that will be nice to read, but I don't plan to read any further in this until I finish at least Perdido Street Station, because that's my main fantasy that I'm reading right now. But I have A Song for Arbonne that I'm like 25% of the way through, and then my secret book I'm like 50% of the way through, so I'm like, maybe I should prioritize and wrap those up before I get too far in this. That way I'm not trying to juggle like too many fantasy worlds in depth, because A Song for Arbonne and the secret book both have lots and lots of characters and intricate worlds and political systems, so I am a little worried about like piling too much on my brain to where I get confused and I don't enjoy them as much as I should. So those are just the things I'm thinking about as I'm starting books. And I'm gonna go read now before it gets too late to get a good chunk done. But a nice historical fiction, I think, should be good. I've heard this one's very good. I have The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna, so she's one of my authors that I'm reading, who I own multiple books by. Same with Rachel Neumeyer. That's the biggest goal I had for the year, where I had to read like a lot of books for it. A lot of the books that I have on this TBR are fulfilling that goal. So if I like this, I have more of hers to look forward to. If I don't like it, maybe I can pass this one along and maybe the other one as well. So I'm going to read it. I'm hoping for the best. I do like stories about sisters, so I'm hoping that that will be something I really enjoy in this book. Hello, I'm here to wrap up what I've been working on for the past day and a half and close out week 3 of Chaostober and start getting ready for week 4. So yesterday I read The Nightingale. I took the dust jacket off. I read 11 pages, the first 2 chapters, And I liked it well enough. I can't say I'm in love with the writing, but it wasn't doing anything like egregious. If you hear anything, the cat is scratching right behind the camera because he gets very energetic when I get home and start talking on the camera. So I started this not really far enough into it to give like super big opinions, but I did start it. And then for today, I started Pilgrim's Progress by John Bunyan, and I read a really good amount. I've read 58 pages. I'm over a quarter of the way there. This is like 193 pages. So definitely like making good progress. This is a very easy read. The language is fairly simple for it being some of the concepts a little bit heady. It's quite a simple read in and of itself. So I'm having a good time reading through that one. Have not read any more in Tortilla Flat. I'm still about a third of the way through that one. But I did finish Perdido Street Station by China Mieville. And I unfortunately need to rant a little bit. If you watch my week 2 vlog, I had been about a third to half of the way through this, and I was singing this book's praises. I thought it was going to be a 5-star read. I thought it was going to be great. And boy, has it fallen. I'm ending on what I think will be a 2-star. In some ways that feels like not enough, and in some ways that feels generous. So I'm going to give some spoiler-free thoughts, and then I will need to give spoiler thoughts to explain why I think this book is so terrible. So, spoiler-free thoughts. The first section of this book, so the first third to a half of this book is very, very good. We're following 2 main characters and then some like side characters. So our main character, Isaac, is this crazy, like, scientist. He does all these, like, weird things that are a little sketchy, but kind of brilliant. And then we're following his girlfriend, who is a Khepri, which she has the body of a human, but then the head of, like, a scarab beetle. And they are in a relationship and kind of doing their own things. So Isaac gets approached by a Garuda, which is like a human bird creature. And the Garuda has had his wings ripped out and asks Isaac to basically help him fly. Create some way for Isaac, or for, his name is Yag, create some way for Yag to be able to fly again. So Isaac agrees. He's really like interested by this like intriguing puzzle and agrees to try to help out Yag. Then Lynn gets this like basically like a mob boss, gives her this job. He is what's called a remade, which is where people undergo these like surgeries to basically change their appearance. And he has gone to the extreme of like really remaking his body over to where he has like goat legs and tentacles and scales and feathers. Like he's literally this amalgamation of like all these like surgeries and weird things. And he's very vain and he thinks he's very interesting to look at. He's like the most unique creature on the planet. And so he hires Lynn, who is an artist, to create like a statue of him. So that's like our main plot. As that's happening, we learn that like Isaac and Lynn are in a relationship that is looked down upon. Humans and Khepri are not supposed to find each other attractive, and especially the Khepri. The Khepri are very looked down upon. And we're learning about all these different weird things in the city. We're learning about the government. Then about halfway through the book, we basically get a monster plot that takes up the last 350 to 400 pages. And let me tell you, that got old really fast. The first section of the monster plot was interesting, and it dragged after that. Like, the last 200 pages of this were such a slog. China Mieville has a very beautiful lyrical writing style that when you're describing these interesting scenes and scenarios and places in the city, it works really great. When you're describing action scenes in like verbose, overly flowery written, super gory, super drawn out. Like at one point, people are having to like spread wire across the city to do something. And it was pages and pages of people like just setting up wire. And it was so boring that like when we actually get to the action, I'm like so exhausted from everything that we've been writing about. So just that, without spoilers. First part, super interesting, really great. Last half probably could have been cut down by like 150 pages. Like it really needed to figure out how to get an action-based pace rather than keeping that like exploration-based pace that we had at the beginning. So I am going to go into spoiler territory. This will spoil huge things in the book. So if you don't want to know, you'll need to leave. I'll put like a spoiler warning across the screen. And then you can come back when it's done and I'll kind of wrap up the week. If you want to know about the spoilers, stay here. But I will be spoiling like big reveals. So about halfway through the book, when the big bad things happen, it's these moths that are like murdering people. They're these crazy big moths and they murder people and basically suck out all their brains. They get released onto the city. Things are in chaos. People are dying. And the guy that had hired Lynn thinks that Isaac like stole the moth from him and basically sends to Isaac like, I've kidnapped Lynn, I'm going to torture her until you give yourself up and help fix what happened. So Isaac is like, of course he loves Lynn. He's like, I'm going to go try to save her. Like, we got to figure out what happens. And this guy that they're working with, who is not the greatest guy, basically says, what reason does Motley have not just to kill Lynn? We don't need to go after her because she's probably already dead. He wouldn't keep her alive. He's just going to kill her and then kill you when you show up there. And Isaac, for some unknown reason, decides to listen to this and just basically says, yeah, she's dead. So I guess I'll just start grieving her now. So I knew as the reader that she was not dead because they did not write a death scene for her. And there was a little part of me that was like, maybe it was going to be like graphic torture and like, we're not going to find that out. You know, he didn't want to like write about it too much. But as we're like reading and we're not getting confirmation that she's dead, I'm like, okay, she has to be alive, right? But she's been sidelined for this entire novel. And it was like, as we were getting closer and closer to the end, I had like 50 pages left. And I'm like, Lynn is not, like, what happened to her? She just disappeared. I don't think she's dead, but she's like not coming back. So then we finally get to about the 50-page mark. And we find out that Lynn was basically captured, tortured by Motley, her boss, and Isaac ends up trying to save her. She gets her brain, like partially her mind sucked out by some of the moths, and she basically is living life now as like a toddler. Like, she's kind of insane. She can't fully think for herself. She's kind of like a kid, but like a kid that doesn't make any sense and goes from like laughing hysterically to like weeping. And so basically he takes this character, sidelines her halfway through the book, then at the end of the book basically debilitates her mentally, all so that we feel sad that, like, Isaac has to go through it and has to, like, keep her alive even though he thinks it might be, like, a terrible situation. It's just, it felt so icky how that happened. And then I kept reading, and about 20 pages later, we find that there is another Garuda. The Garuda are the bird-human hybrids. The guy is a Garuda who Isaac is trying to help fly again. And there is a woman Garuda who basically comes and says, you are trying to help Yag fly. We judged him as Garudas because of something he had done, and I'm asking you to not reinstate his ability to fly because this is his punishment for something that he's done. And Isaac's like, but he's my friend. And then finally she basically says, what he did to me you would call rape. Please don't give him a chance to fly again because what he did is terrible. There are a few things worse than it, and we don't want you to undo justice. So then Isaac decides not to help Yag. The last section of the story was all about Yag thinking back on what he did. We finally got his point of view, thinking back to what he had done to the woman Garuda. They semi-graphically showed the assault on page, and then it spent the rest of the book talking about how much pain Yag had gone through, how much shame he felt at what he did, and how he sort of wants to die because he feels so much shame and guilt, and he can't be a part of his people anymore. And he basically, like, tears out all his feathers at the end and is like, fine, I'll just live as a human. And I thought about it all day because I was, like, fuming about this. It felt to me like we were supposed to sort of sympathize with a rapist at the end of this book. I could not figure out why we have this random character being like, he raped me, please don't, reinstate his ability to fly. And she's, like, on there for, like, 2 pages. And it's very brief. We don't really get to know anything about her. And then this character that we've been following, who has now been revealed to be a rapist, we get to discuss how hurt he was by the situation, how much his punishment sucked. We should feel sorry for him. And it's like, he wasn't forced to do anything. He assaulted someone. He thought he had a right to another person's body, took it, and then he has to deal with punishment the way that the Garudas dole out punishment for a severe crime. I don't know why we are having this discussion. Like, nowhere in this book did I feel like he was being condemned over the fact that we should feel sorry for him for what he's had to deal with. There was barely any discussion about the woman Garuda who he had raped. There was, like, no discussion about that except for, like, 2 sentences, but then we get to spend so long talking about how much pain he was in having his wings cut off. And I'm like, yeah, it was painful, but, like, you did it. You knew what would happen. Like, it made me so mad. I had added a lot of his books to my Storygraph because I was excited about this. I don't know if I'll read from him ever again. I'm going to take all the books off my Storygraph TBR. These books are leaving my shelves. I was like, I don't trust China Miéville as a writer anymore. Like, that was a choice, the way he handled it, and it was a bad choice in my mind. I hated the way it was written. I didn't even like the last half of the book that much, so it's leaving my shelves, and so are the sequels, and I would not recommend anyone pick up Pretty Dear's Street Station. That's what I get for recommending it last vlog before finishing it. Okay, rant is over. The long and short of it is that I will not be keeping these books. I don't trust China Miéville as an author to handle really sensitive topics in a empathetic and understanding way, in a way that aligns with my values, and I don't think I will be reading from him again, which is unfortunate because I really like his writing, but like, ick. Ick, ick, ick. So, my goals for this evening are to focus on my 2 shorties, try to read as much of them as I can. Our plans got canceled. I may say if my husband wants to watch a movie, but I'll be reading a little bit of these tonight. And since I don't know if I'll be finishing anything, I'll just update you in next week's vlog. When I start it, I have one more, round of choosing how I pick in a way that's different from before. So we will be embarking on that journey. My biggest goal right now is to try to finish things up before the end of the month. So before Chaostober is over, I kind of would like to have wrapped up most of the books that I've started, because I have, I think, 8 books on the go right now, and these will obviously be quite short. I think this will be a fast read. I'm part of the way through some big fantasies. I'm a good portion of the way through Bitter Greens. So the idea is just to kind of read down as much as I have, close things out as much as I can throughout week 4, and then see what I have left to finish at the end of week 4. As far as goals go, this counted for a fantasy mass market paperback and an author I hadn't read from before, but I own multiple books by. I might be done with the mass market paperback fantasy goal once I finish up the Secret Book and then A Song for Arbonne that I'm in the middle of reading. So I think that goal is very close to being wrapped up. I still have quite a few authors' books to try. I still need to read a fantasy trilogy that I own. This was one I was considering, but that will not be happening now. And then classics, I'm working on 2 of them, and then I'll have 2 left. I have the Oscar Wilde one, and then Pilgrim's Regress, which is C.S. Lewis's response to this book. So we're getting there, but I would like to obviously be done with all of them by the end of the month. Will that happen? No. But I'm just trying to wrap up these things. That way I can start checking boxes and know how far I need to go on everything else to make it actually happen to be done with the books. So, thank you so much for sticking around. I would love to know if you've ever had an experience where a book started off so good and then kind of plummeted towards the end. I would love to know if that's ever happened to you. I don't think it's ever happened quite so steeply. I was really enjoying Pretty Dear's Street Station, and I came away from it really having the ick about the author himself. So that was an interesting experience, not one I care to replicate, but I would be interested to know if that's ever happened to you before. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see my final week of Chaostober and then all the other fun things that are coming up in November. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye! 3 more added to the stack. I feel like I may need to move this onto the floor at some point. It's getting more precarious, but feels pretty great.